that time is that she would begin to share some special insights about her life. And she would ask me questions about what I was thinking. And we began to savor those special times and insights. And it became very important to me. One day I began to wonder how she knew so much about life, and I discovered she often had dessert with a puzzle maker. She would dedicate time to connecting to the one who gave her the pieces of her life and could show her how to put them together. And in time, she became, in my opinion, a puzzle master as she learned about life from the one who created it. This became quite apparent to me when I was in Iraq one day. I was making my rounds through the spaces there, visiting with Marines, checking on them, seeing how they were doing, eyeballs, how's it going, clear picture there, no fog in the eyes, asking about their families, how are things back home, what help can I be for you, what do you need? And as I was standing there in one of the tents, talking to 2 or 3 Marines, a gunny came into the tent. He was carrying on business. He had something he had to do in one of the back sections, and he just kind of made his way. He said, "Excuse me, sir," and kind of walked through our group and was headed towards the back of the tent. And there on the corner of a desk, he noticed there was a Rubik's Cube sitting there. And really, without paying any attention to us, he stopped and he picked up that Rubik's Cube and he studied it for a second, and he went to work on it. And within just a matter of seconds, it seemed like, he had put all of those panels in exactly the right order with all the colors matched up just like they needed to be. And he set it down in the corner and he walked on back to the back of the tent carrying on his business. Well, you can imagine that got all our attention. And we were kind of still carrying on the conversation. And in about 5 minutes, the gunny had finished what he was doing and he was coming back through the tent. And one of the Marines said, "Hey, gunny, you got to tell us, what's that about?" And the gunny kind of smiled and he picked up the cube and tossed it over to the Marine, the young Lance Corporal, I believe it was. And he said, "Mix it up." So the Marine, he went to, working on it really hard and got it scrambled up what he thought was good, and he kind of pitched it back to the gunny. The gunny studied it a second, started making his moves. Next thing you know, faster, 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 and wham! All the colors were back in place again. He tossed it back to the Marine, just kind of smiled. Again, we were all thoroughly impressed. The Marine standing next to him grabbed it, put it behind his back, and started, mixing it up again, just twirling it. Somehow, I guess he thought the gunny was watching every move that was going on in front of his eyes, but he mixed it up real good, and he pitched it back to the gunny. Same thing happened again. Pitched it back to the Marine. The guy, the other Marine that was standing there, he grabbed it. He went outside. He took it outside, and I was like, what is he doing out there? Is he taking this thing apart and, and putting it back together? But he went outside for about 2-3 minutes. He was gone. He'd come back in, and he said, "Okay, gunny, now do it." And the gunny, he was kind of laughing at this point. And he took it, again, studied it. Wham! And the Marine finally, they gave up and they said, "Gunny, you got to tell us how you do that. What's the trick?" He said, "It's really no trick." He said, "Let me tell you what happened. When I was a young boy, teenager," he said, "I was kind of a geek, kind of a nerd. And that's when the Rubik's Cube came out." He said it splashed into our world, and everybody was trying to figure it out. Everybody was trying to break the code and learn how to do this. And he said, I got enthralled with it. And I read everything. I read everything written by the gentleman who created the Rubik's Cube. I would go on the internet and do searches, and constantly, it seemed like day and night for months and months and months, I would study this Rubik's Cube. He said, until I learned to think like the one who made it. And he said, once I learned how to think like the one who made it, the puzzle was very easy to deal with, and I could always put the pieces back in place. And he says, now it's very simple to me. I don't even have to think about it. He said, you can wake me up in my sleep almost, and I can sort out the puzzle because I've learned how to think like the puzzle maker. Well, that stuck with me, and as I was walking out and back towards the next spaces, it's dawned on me. I said, that's my granny. But not with a Rubik's Cube, but with life itself. She had learned how to be a puzzle master with all the things that life had thrown her and the things that she could work through to the point that it seemed like almost simple to her to deal with those major problems because she learned how to think like the puzzle maker. As I watched her and began to try to put the pieces of my own life together, I learned the significance of having dessert with the puzzle maker, and I've discovered a few fundamentals that are key. These are things that you will probably recognize. I think there's a sheet there, page 6 in your booklet, if you want to follow along, that references some of these. And I want to kind of walk down through some of these fundamentals with you in the next little bit and incorporate how they've helped me in my story. The first of these, you will remember from your childhoods, when you pour the box out, you go looking for the corner pieces first, right? There's usually 4 corner pieces in that box, and you want to identify them quickly because they are the anchor points. They are the pillar markers for the way the rest of this puzzle is going to look. And you want to find them quickly because they give it its basic shape. I'll suggest 4 that have been helpful to me, and you process that along with your own thinking. One is to respect God. The second is to love your family. The third is to live right, make good choices. And the fourth is to work hard to provide for those that you care for. So you got it? 4 anchor pieces. Now you don't have to choose mine, but I would say to you, you need some anchor pieces in this puzzle of life that you're going to put together. Once you've got those in place and settled, then what you need to do is begin to identify all the end pieces. Remember sorting them out, all the pieces with a straight edge that you know are going to fit around the border somewhere. You want to begin to locate them and set them aside so you can work with them. These are the pieces that provide the fundamental principles for living in our life puzzle. They give your life a framework and important boundaries that you will need to frame this picture. For me, the top frame edge pieces represent the relationships. Down the left and right side, I like to talk about the rules and responsibilities, and along the bottom then, I like to think of the results. And these pieces need to be put together in such a way that they can give you this outline or framework for your life. The relationships, those would be obvious for many of you. Parents, spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, significant other, however you define that. Children, your combat buddy. In the swim world, the scuba stuff that I've done, it's your swim buddy, okay? The person that you know is going to have your back. You need to define those relationships and cause them to flourish. Down the left side, the rules. What are the guiding principles? What are those fixed pieces in your life that you're not going to break? You're not going to go across those lines. For example, things like the golden rule. Most of y'all are familiar with that. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's actually common across all cultures in life. And it's a good foundational concept. There are many other rules out there that you can look through and embrace. And you need to know how to follow those fundamental rules. I would say there's also the aspect of knowing when to apply the rules and when not to apply the rules. How do rules fit in certain contexts? For instance, this uniform I have on today, Marine Corps uniform, and I'm proud to be able to wear it. When I put this uniform on, whenever I attach the ribbons and the badges that I wear on it, they go 1/8 inch above the pocket, and each badge is separated by 1/8 inch. You all know that, right? You know that. You're looking at it. I'm seeing some of you squared away. You got it, okay? On the Navy uniform, they actually go 1/4 inch above the pocket and 1/4 inch between the badge. And actually, the top badge slides down to the top pocket. Now, I have to say to you, I was a former Marine. I wore it this way for 11 years of my life. And then when I slid over to the Navy side, I was like, that ain't right. What are y'all doing? But what I realized was there was a different set of rules in that environment that I had to adjust to if I wanted to continue to be squared away. So you've got to learn to relate to the rules that way. And the judge has given you some great insights this morning about how to do that. I would also say to you, you need to learn where to push the rules when appropriate. For instance, yesterday I flew in from Washington, D.C. I had to go there for some meetings. I live in Alabama, but I flew up there, and as I was flying back into Atlanta yesterday, I happened to look out the right side of the aircraft, and I saw a startling sight. There were 3 airplanes lined up side by side. I was in what I'll call the third one, and there were 2 more spread out, and we were all coming in to land at the same time. The furthest one was just a little bit ahead, then the middle one was just jogged back from him a little bit so I could see all three planes. And I'll be honest with you, that made me a little nervous at first, because I said if we were all going towards the same runway at the same time, we'd be broke the rules and we're going to have a major incident. But fortunately, these runways were all about a mile apart, and with great success, we all landed smoothly. And it struck me, I said, I wonder what Wilbur and Orville Wright would think of that if they could see it. Because they lived in a day, and I've stood there at Kitty Hawk, they lived in a day when the rule was man can't fly. And people even said something like, if God meant for man to fly, he would have given him wings. And that was the rule. And they pushed the rule to the point now that they have changed the world and made it possible for all of you to be here this morning. So know how to relate to the rules and use them appropriately. And then I would say you've got to define your responsibilities. The responsibilities are the things in life that you're passionate about, the things that you take ownership for. They're not a part of the rules necessarily, but they're the pieces that you say, I want to do this. The United States Marine Corps is a volunteer organization. You took on this responsibility and chose to participate. That's the kind of things I'm talking about. In my life, something that's become very personal for me is Memorial Day flag relay. This is something that actually started in Iraq in 2005 when I was there, and we did it as a unit. We sponsored it, and it emerged out of the phrase that Marines use, going to run all day, going to run all night. And we chose to honor those who had fallen in the battle and other folks that we knew had paid the ultimate sacrifice by running around Camp Fallujah from daylight till dark. Every 15 minutes we passed the flag to another pair, and we ran it all day. And we asked people to stop and pause, to salute, or to just bow their heads in silence and reverence, or maybe to say a prayer for those families as we remembered. I had a couple of Marines come back at the end of that day and tell me, sir, I think this is one of the most meaningful things I've ever been a part of. And it was incredible to see over 200 Marines and other service members volunteer in that experience in a combat zone to do something like that. And they challenged me. They said, sir, you need to take that back home. We need to do this in the U.S. where our country can see it. And because of some tragedies in my life and a few other deployments, I wasn't able to do much with that till 2008. And when I came home in March of 2008 again, from hanging out with some special dudes, I was determined this time to do it at home, because my boots had been in blood puddles, and I had seen, I didn't say mud puddles, you got it right, you know what I'm talking about, blood puddles, where I had seen some of our true heroes bleed out, and I had prayed for them as they took their last breath. And I said, somebody needs to remember that, and we need to help our country appreciate that. It's kind of sacrifice. So we did it. In the last 2 years, we have run from the National Cemetery in Mobile, Alabama to Naval Air Station, Pensacola, 80 miles, passing the flag every mile to another pair. We have one American flag, and next to it is that we support our troops flag with all the emblems. And we start at 07, and we go. We go till we get there. Last year we ran 2 flags simultaneously, and we added another component in Biloxi. And this year I'm hoping to spread that on around, maybe to New Orleans, if we can, to get people involved so as people are driving down the road, they remember. They remember. And I'll tell you, my mind's gone so far with this that I'm actually thinking now and trying to make plans as we logistically support something like this, that in a couple of years, 2-3 years, if I can do it, I'm going to generate some momentum that we start at the National Cemetery in Washington, D.C., and we go to Marine Corps Boot Camp San Diego all the way in one day. 50 flags, 50 miles, all the way. It can be done. About 5,000 volunteers is all it will take. Now, what I want to say to you is, nobody's told me I have to do that. Nobody said, get out there after Chaplain Lee, this is your job. No, it's something I care about. And it's a way that I actually have learned to be able to process and deal with some of my operational impact.